Hi, I'm Amy Speak, CEO of executive search firm Holmes Noble, and welcome to the very first episode of Advice from Above. Over the course of this series, I'll be sitting down with 12 experienced and influential CEOs to uncover what leadership at the very top really looks like today. We'll be talking about what drives them, what challenges them, what keeps them awake at night, and importantly, whether the next generation of C-suite leaders are truly ready for the pressures and complexity and unpredictability of the modern business world. This isn't about polished corporate answers, it's about honest conversations, real leadership lessons, and the realities of operating at the top when expectations have never been higher. Along the way, I'm hoping for a few candid insights, some hard truths, and some interesting stories. Whether you're a CEO thinking about succession, a board assessing future leadership, or an ambitious executive with your sights set on the top, these conversations are designed to challenge thinking and provide practical takeaways you can apply yourself. Each episode will also contribute to the Ascent, Holmes Noble's flagship Future CEO initiative, focused on addressing the growing trust gap between today's CEOs and tomorrow's leadership talent. And our guests won't just be sharing their experiences, they'll be helping shape the next generation of leaders through tangible involvement in the programme itself. To find out more about the programme, visit holmesnoble.com/The Ascent. So without further delay, let me introduce our first guest. In this episode, I speak with James Wroath, CEO of Keller, and a leader who's built his career on taking complex, high-stake operations and making them perform. James made his name in logistics, most notably as CEO of Wincanton, where he led the transformation of one of the UK's largest supply chain businesses through a period of significant change and ultimately its acquisition by GXO. Before that, he had senior leadership roles across global operators, managing large, demanding businesses at serious scale. What's interesting is that he's now stepped into the role at Keller, a completely different sector, but one facing equally intense pressure around performance, delivery and transformation. So the question is, what does it really take to lead successfully when the environment changes, but the expectations don't? So why don't we dive straight in? Can you tell me about your ascent to the top? How have you got to where you are today? And what were the pivotal moments that shaped your path?
Yeah, I would say that the most critical factor in me getting to the position and the role that I have today is having really good mentors.
Okay.
It's having people that gave me opportunities that maybe I wasn't even quite ready for.
Yeah.
But did that, with a tremendous amount of support. So but the particularly transformational time for me was when I was at Scottish and Newcastle.
Yeah.
So brewing back in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s, an industry that was still making pretty good money, a very traditional sector where they invested a lot in training and development of people, and a lot of senior leaders who had been there for quite a long time were comfortable in their own skin and perhaps not so interested in their own progression anymore, and took a real interest in developing talent. And a number of really memorable mentors from that time. And early in my career with Scottish and Newcastle, I think I did probably 4 jobs inside the first 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of times when I was sort of put into roles, and I always remember I ran a depot in Chelmsford, and I ran it for about a year, just under a year, I think, actually. And I don't think I achieved anything for the business in that time. And I can remember when they said, we now want you to go off and take part in a supply chain review project up in Edinburgh. And I said, but I've still got loads to do in Chelmsford. I haven't proven myself. And the sort of reaction from my mentor at the time was, look, you've done enough, you've ticked the box. We're happy with what you've learned, move on. And I think that's, I feel very fortunate to have worked for an organisation that put a priority on my development as much as running that business and doing a good job for them. Then I think there were a couple of pivotal moments and opportunities that arose that I was able to take at the right time in my career. So, Scottish and Newcastle outsourced the remainder of its logistics to Kuehne and Nagel. Yeah. Probably at the time, I didn't relish that. I enjoyed working for a brewery. Yeah. If you're a lover of beer, who doesn't?
Yeah.
And, you know, there's quite a cachet to working for a brewery. You go into a pub with your mates and this is one of ours. This is, look at, you know, all of our brands on the bar, to ending up in a slightly difficult to pronounce logistics business. It wasn't quite the same. But actually, it took me from being a cost centre manager, which is effectively, even at quite senior levels in Scottish and Newcastle, logistics was a cost centre, into true P&L. So on the 3PL side of things, you've got to pull the revenue lever as much as you have the cost lever in order to make more profit. So that opened me up and rounded me quite a lot more. But also, even more importantly, because Kuehne + Nagel was an international business, the opportunity came up to go to the US and to manage the US, Canada, and Mexico, and that, in terms of, you know, my learning as a leader and understanding different cultures, was just fabulous. And, you know, even so, obviously Mexico you would expect to be quite different, but even the US, you know, where we speak the same language but things don't mean the same. So I always remember one of my first, well, it was my second meeting actually, and in the first meeting I'd said to my new team, I said, I think it would be a really good idea if we looked at A, B, and C. And in the second meeting, I said, how did we get on looking at that? And they said, we didn't look at it.
Yeah.
And I said, but I thought we said we were going to. And they said, no. We remember very clearly. You said you thought it would be a good idea. We didn't think it was a good idea, so we didn't do anything with it. And so there was a whole quite amusing conversation about understanding what a Brit means when we make a suggestion. But there was also huge, you know, even more understanding for me about, look, you've got to be very careful with what your language is and what you're trying to, what language you use in order to get things done in different environments and different cultures. So that was, you know, that was really amazing. And also, I think stepping away from the UK for a bit is good for anybody's career, because, you know, this is a great country, but it is quite small and it can be quite myopic. And when you get outside of the country and look back into it and compare, you know, I was in logistics in those days, everything in the UK can be next day, no problem, right? It's all delivered through pretty amazing parcel networks. You go to the US and, you know, if you're going to deliver by truck, it's 6 days across the country. So just a totally different scale, totally different perspective, and so much about leadership is perspective. So that was fantastic. And then the last piece was coming back to the UK, and I was just fortunate at the point of time that I decided to come back to the UK. A PLC CEO role, which is what I really wanted, just happened to come up, which was the Wincanton role, and fortunately for me, I got it. Yeah,
well, you did a great job there. You talk about sort of mentorship, sponsorship. Was that something that you actively went out to seek, or was that something that sort of just was the culture at that time of the organisation? Because I think it's so important individuals and leaders have access to people outside their organisation as well that are going to sort of support them on that sort of journey of growth. We tell individuals all the time, sort of network, build your sort of network is really important. So I'd be keen to understand a bit more about sort of, I guess, how did you come about thinking, okay, I need that sort of sponsorship?
Yeah, so certainly for the first 20 years of my career, that mentorship came internally. I didn't have to do a lot of external. And I think it was, to a degree, accidental, but clearly, I think one of the things I can build rapport with people, and I think I probably did spot those people that could give me good advice. I remember very distinctly, my first 2 years of work were with a parcel carrier, and it was an amazing experience. I saw everything end to end and spent 2 weeks in credit control and things like that, and, you know, really in-depth, which I needed. I was 20 and I hadn't really done very much work, so it was great for me. But I knew that industry, with due respect to the people that I worked with, didn't have the time or necessarily the people to mentor where I wanted to get to. And the brewery was a complete transformation. I didn't know it at the time, but it was a complete transformation going into that. So I guess I've generally relied on internal mentorship, and then until later in my career, and then I've had a relationship with a coach who's helped me and done a lot of team facilitation with me over the last 20 years, and he's sort of seen my growth, and he knows me well enough to point out the good changes and the not so good changes, or the ones that still need some more further change to it. And now in my Keller role, the board actually, when I joined, even though I was a proven CEO, were keen that I had a mentor. So I've got a mentor in that role too. And I think it just, having people that you can bounce things off and talk to, and people who've been through similar experiences. Again, it's back to that word perspective.
Yeah.
The more perspectives you can get in life, and the more perspectives you can get on your business and your role and how you go about it, then the better. Yeah.
Was there ever a time that you just, I guess, considered sort of walking away? And if so, sort of what stopped you?
I've never considered walking away. I enjoy work, and it's always been my good fortune to have ended up firstly in logistics, in an industry where you really rely on people, you rely on teams, and ultimately, however difficult a customer relationship is, or however badly an operation is or isn't going, you still have a team spirit. You're still in it together. I had some time in the US with Kuehne + Nagel where I lost my confidence a bit.
Yeah.
Made a lot of progress in the first year, 18 months I was there, and then that slowed a bit.
Yeah.
And Kuehne + Nagel expects quite quick, fast results, because freight forwarding, you can turn things around quite quickly, whereas contract logistics was a bit more difficult. There's a certain culture there, and I did lose my confidence a bit, and I didn't realise that until I left and I joined LSG and I joined Sky Chefs. Totally different business, still with a high logistics component, but different. And I walked in there, and after a couple of days, I thought, I can do this. It's just that environment had ended up not being right for me and LSG.
Yeah. I was going to say, was it down to the sort of role of the environment? But it sounds like the environment was just not right at that point in time.
Yeah, in the end, I just think it wasn't particularly a good cultural fit. But a lot of it was that I was ready, in my own mind, I was ready to have more responsibility for a broader range of the strategy. And within the Kuehne + Nagel structure, I was part of the North American organisation. Yeah. Whereas in LSG Sky Chefs, I was head of North America reporting into Germany. Yeah. So now suddenly that geography is mine. Now there's a board to report to, there's a strategy to get signed off. There's lots of that has to happen. But when you're 5,000-6,000 miles away and an 7-8 hour time difference away, you do get quite a lot of time to realise that this is my ship. I'm not a big fan of but it's our ship, right? And therefore you really do own the strategy. And I looking back, I think I probably just outgrew, in my own mind. Yeah. Other people can judge whether that's right, but I outgrew having a boss on top of me in the same
so the time was
in the same office. I wanted to be a CEO. I wanted to be a proper CEO, as in having that individual responsibility.
Have you always wanted to be a proper CEO, or has that come sort of throughout your career, thinking that's what I want to do, be at the top table? I didn't one of these people who sat there and said, in 5 years' time I want to be this, in 10 years' time I want to be this. Look, I like taking responsibility. Yeah. I like building teams. I've always liked leading teams, right? There's a danger that that sounds egotistical. I guess from school teams and youth teams, I liked being the captain, right? Now, I like to say that isn't because I like to boss people around, order people around. That's not I don't think that's my MO. You'd have to ask teams I've worked with whether they would see it differently. But I do like responsibility. Yeah, okay. And so I've always wanted to get to the next role where I can have more responsibility, until I got to be a CEO. Yeah. So I'm not, I don't sit here now with targets of, I'd love to be a FTSE 100 CEO. Okay. What's the next job? What's the next role? For me, I loved being CEO of Wincanton.
better for worse, we ended up selling the business. I absolutely love being the CEO of Keller, and if this is it until the end of my career, then I'll be happy doing that.
How much of your success is down to luck versus skill? And tell the truth.
Well, look, I mean, it's a cliche, right? But you make your own luck. You don't do well in anything in life if you just rely on luck. But there's a good proportion of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
There's a good portion of being flexible. I've lived in a lot of places just in the UK before I even went to the US. So moving around and being flexible and looking for those options. I don't think that's either skill or luck. I think that's just a mindset.
Yeah, of course.
And I think a lot of it is a mindset that if you're prepared to do what other people aren't prepared to do, your competition gets smaller. I don't know how I would measure it, Amy, to be honest. You need some luck. You need to be in the right place at the right time. Yeah. But I think that in the end, it's mostly down to mindset, what you put in, some skill and some ability, and some and probably above all else, self-awareness. Yeah. Okay. So understanding what you are and aren't good at.
And when in your sort of career did that sort of come through in terms of sort of that self-awareness and thinking?
Well, again, I like to think I've always been pretty self-aware, right? I mean, I think around the time I moved from Scottish and Newcastle, where I was reasonably comfortable, into Kuhn and Nagel, and started, I had to put together a new team there. We had people who were Hayes, then Kuhn and Nagel, and Scottish and Newcastle people coming together, and I was the operations director of the new business, and I had a blend of those, and I had some really super experienced people. At that point, I think I and my coach gave me some feedback then that listening and really allowing the team to come up with solutions was the next stage of my development. Right, I'm enthusiastic, and I like to think I'm a pretty creative thinker. Yeah. The danger of that is that you try and do everybody's thinking for them, and that was probably one of the main learnings I had. But I think I've always been sensitive to feedback, and again, it's for others to judge, but I would say that I'm reasonably self-aware.
Yeah. Looking at the sort of role of a CEO, what, in your opinion, do people outside of the role most misunderstand or misinterpret?
I think people probably think it's harder than it is. In the sense that the job of a good CEO is to marshal the team. Right? It's to be the coach and the manager rather than one of the players. Right? And if you've got that, and if you build a good team and motivate a good team, and get them playing in the way you want them to play, the job of the CEO is not the hardest in the business. So I think there's some of that. The other bit that I struggle with is the title bestowing internally, bestowing respect and no, beyond respect. Right, everybody wants to be respected. Everybody should be respected at work, but that people think that you're special in some way. That your treatment when you arrive for a tour of a location should be different from other people, and that I don't particularly. No. I don't particularly relish that. I'd rather people sort of saw me as James and were open and honest, and we had a chat about how they felt about the business, what they thought we could do better, and listen to a little bit about what I wanted them to focus on and concentrate on. So
What surprised you most stepping into the sort of your first CEO role? Is there anything that you thought, I wasn't expecting this?
There's a certain amount of loneliness to it. So, I said earlier that I wanted that responsibility. I wanted that responsibility and accountability, and to have, for it to be my ship, right? I probably underestimated that once you get that, you no longer, for the first time in your life, you no longer have a direct boss.
Yeah.
Now, of course, unless you own your own company, there's always a boss, right?
Yeah, of course.
So,
yeah.
I still had a great chair at Wincanton who was there for me and advisory, but, that's not an executive role in a PLC. And you don't want to turn it into an executive role, right? They don't want it to become an executive role, hopefully, and you certainly don't want to turn it into. So your team are there for you; they're there to support. But sometimes the issue is within your team. Sometimes the stuff you need to sort out within your team, and you are, there is a loneliness. Sounds like I'm looking for sympathy. It's not that, but there's a certain isolation to it. And like I say, I seek responsibility and accountability. But sometimes you think, why did I do that?
Well, it's that saying, isn't it? It's lonely when you get to the top. And some of the decisions that you have to make are sort of personal, not personal, but individual decisions. That sort of, you question yourself, I guess, when you don't have a team around you.
And there's also that point in time where a decision has to be made. And hopefully it doesn't happen too often in a year, because you would hope that most decisions are arrived at through discussion in the team and analysis, and everybody's on the same page and it becomes obvious what you should do. But there are some occasions where, part of the team will think one thing and part of the team will think something else, or there's a discussion about priorities and where we invest our money and where we don't, and or a discussion about somebody, whether they should be promoted or the opposite, that ultimately a CEO has to make a call. So that comes with the role.
3 o'clock in the morning, you're wide awake. What keeps you awake at night, and also what keeps you awake that you perhaps wouldn't take to the boardroom or sort of share in a board meeting?
Well, I mean, firstly, I sleep pretty well.
Okay, you're not the first one to say that.
Well, I think it's important to have balance and perspective, right? And there are jobs out there that are life and death, right? I've not run a business that is life and death, and whilst you're responsible for people's livelihoods, you can be responsible for some pretty important products, or in logistics for moving some pretty important things. I do think you perspective is really important for a CEO. I mean, within Keller, it's all about, in the short term, it's all about projects, winning business, revenue, right? I mean, if you don't have the customers, if you don't have the contracts, you don't have a business. So if I am up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to worry about anything, it's the irrational sense of what if the world stops building things, there isn't any construction and all that sort of stuff. In terms of taking stuff into the boardroom, I think, I think that I'm a pretty open book with my board, but I think that doesn't mean you splurge out every thought that comes into your mind, right? What's important is to take concerns to them, but only when you're really sure it's a concern and you've got some data to back up that it's a concern. But I do believe that, this is a very specific sort of PLC answer, but, PLC boards are non-execs giving their time. You've got a whole load of experience. If you've got a problem that you want some help with, we talked earlier about mentors, you should ask your board. You should have that discussion.
That's what they're there for.
They are, but a lot of the time, and it's almost the exec side that thinks this more than the non-exec side. It becomes all about governance.
Right, yeah.
It becomes all about, they're just sat there checking that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in all these various policies or through audit or whatever it is. And actually, yes, there's an important governance part. Shareholders' interests have got to be protected. But there is this other piece that, there's a whole wealth of advice in the room. So if there is anything keeping me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, then I would, in a measured way, I would be happy to take it into a board discussion.
What's the most underrated skill or attribute that you believe every CEO needs? You've talked about some of the sort of skills sort of earlier on in this conversation, but is there any one sort of skill or attribute that you think sort of is not seen as, not important, but is underrated, as I said, that is important to have?
Well, I think the public face of a CEO is very much what you say rather than what your organisation says. So I go back again to listening, right? That you're a CEO, yes, of course you're responsible for being the face of the strategy, the face of the results, in lots of ways the face of the business, but you're just one person within an organisation. Keller is 10,000 people. Wincanton could be up to sort of 20,000 people.
Yeah.
You're really representing those people and listening and understanding what is working and what is not working in the business, and what you can do to help that versus saying to people, okay, but I can't fix that for you. You need to fix it yourselves, and I can help you do it, but you need to do it yourselves. So I think that whole point about listening and 360 feedback is a skill that it's easy as a CEO to forget, right?
Yeah.
Because most people in a hierarchical organisation will do what they're told.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Right now, you get into more experienced environments, more mature environments where people are more confident of their place in the world and will tell you.
Yeah.
Regardless, we'll tell any CEO. But generally, we will all have stories, right, of leaders who have said it's my way or the highway.
Yes.
Right, and that's not difficult. That's not difficult to do as a CEO, but it's a really bad thing to do.
Yeah,
right?
of course,
You've got to be decisive. You've got to pick the right people. But if you've got the right people, you've got to listen to them. You've got to get out and about. So. It was a little difficult in Wincanton because of COVID and all those things, but I've always, both in Wincanton and now even more so with Keller, made it a real priority sort of to
dossing all over the world.
Yeah, because it's the work that we do is the people are essential, right? The value of the business is in the people and their expertise, and getting out there and understanding how we do that and how I can help that to be even greater value. Yeah. That's, top 5 in terms of my role.
And I guess it's quite enjoyable as well.
It is. I'm not going to complain. Yeah. I mean, look, there's no CEO should complain about their job, right? I mean, it's a privilege to lead organisations, and leading an organisation like Keller, which has operations all around the world, is an absolute gift. I'm privileged.
How have you found moving sectors?
Interesting, challenging.
Okay.
Particularly as a CEO, right? I mean, because essentially all you have to fall back on are your core leadership skills. And what Keller does is pretty technical.
It is, yeah.
We'll have 700 or 800 qualified civil engineers, graduate civil engineers, and almost half of them will be masters or PhD level education. So I'm never going to catch up with that. But it is a PLC.
Yes.
So in that sense, the skills from my experience with Wincanton, the skills into Keller are the same or are transferable.
Yes.
It is a people business, so yes, there's a lot more sort of engineering expertise, but essentially there's a big workforce, right, that needs to be motivated, retained, and that's again Wincanton and Keller got some similarities there. And it is a global business, and from my time with Kuhn and Nagel, with LSG, I've spent a lot of time with people from a lot of places around the world. So those kind of 3-4 sort of transferable skills are the ones that I fell back on when I first joined, and then it's just a race to understand.
Yes.
And that's great because when I joined Wincanton, I had a lot of preconceived views about logistics, right?
Okay,
I've been in logistics
yeah.
my whole career.
Yeah.
So you join as a CEO, it is almost impossible to not immediately start saying we're going to change this, we should do this differently, we should change it differently. And some of that, that's why I was hired, right?
Yeah.
So I can't do that in Keller. So to really add value, I need to understand at least at a conceptual level, and then build in the detail as I go, what we do, where we add value, because I can't sell that to shareholders if I can't describe it. So it's learning and knowledge, and I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and also sort of bringing a fresh perspective, not having those preconceptions going into an organisation of an industry effectively, is an advantage really in terms of looking at things slightly different. Do you say?
It is. I don't know if my team would say it is. No, it definitely is. You just got to be careful with that, right? You can't learn a business in 6 months.
No.
Right, you can understand it conceptually, and as I say, again, one of my most important roles is the market capitalization of Keller. Right, I need to sell shares.
Yeah.
I need to understand the business, the strengths and the weaknesses and the opportunities, in order to be able to do that. And so, understanding conceptually what we do, how it's different in different markets, was an absolute priority. Yeah. And I would say I'm there on that.
Great.
But to add value to my people and to add value in perhaps customer relationships and things like that, then I need to know the next level of detail. So that's So I think that there are changes that can be made that I have made that fit from a conceptual understanding perspective. But you have to be really careful to not start changing things that you don't really understand at a more detailed level. And I go back again and say that the job of a CEO is to lead the team, it's to coach and manage the team. It's not to go on the pitch.
No,
right?
or get involved in the technical
certainly
delivery.
not very often. Yeah, exactly. No, they don't want me. They don't want me sat in a rig. That's for sure. So, those skills are transferable. Yeah. I think probably they're more transferable than most industries think they are. If you look, you're in the headhunting space. It's not for me to be asking you questions in this podcast, but it's difficult to persuade people to be open to people from different sectors and different industries.
And we're such an advocate for it. Really trying to promote that sort of diversity of thought and that transferable capability from a leadership perspective. But it is a hard slog. It's a sort of water uphill push.
It is, and it's very hard to know just how critical that sort of carnal knowledge is versus transferable skills. Yeah. But I think that if you're going to be able to do it anywhere, in some ways, CEO is the easiest place to do it, right? So I have 3 divisional presidents. Managing the 3 geographies around the world. All 3 of them have a really, really good understanding of what we do, and in fact 2 of them are, geotechnical ground engineers, right? So the CEO, I don't need to do their job for them. The CEO can afford to be different, but as you go down the organisation, it becomes harder and harder to say, "Oh, let's have somebody who has a different background."
Maybe I'll use you as a case study in a couple of years' time. Looking at sort of future leaders, what do you think, James, are the mistakes you're seeing sort of potential CEOs make, and how does that damage their prospects of getting that sort of top role?
Yeah, so I think it's hard, right?
Yeah.
It is hard. I was fortunate that the job at Wincanton came up at the time. I was looking for one, but I was very fortunate that the chair didn't need to have somebody who was a proven PLC CEO or had even been on a board.
Okay.
I hadn't even been on an exec board. I'd been a regional leader with Sky Chefs. So that was my sort of lucky break, if you like. I think I brought a lot of other skills. I think he was always very confident he could help me with the PLC bit, which he did, and I think was fine. I think that it's the adage I'd always have is people in their careers should be learning something new or new things every year. You should have new. You should be able to rewrite your latest job on your CV every year. And if you can't overwrite what was there 12 months ago with new things,
it's really interesting.
You're not moving yourself forward. And so I think some of it is about understanding when you've reached a place that is a bit of a siding, and being proactive in planning with that. But the converse is that I think some people do skip around a bit too much as well.
Get that real.
Yeah, well, and also just there's a certain aspect of patience with it, right? which is difficult. But I think build a CV that has lots of good experience. A range of different of experiences. Get some international experience if you can, and make sure you're learning every year is about all you can do really. But it is that step up is really. It's the same for CFOs.
Yeah, it is.
It's really difficult to get that final leap.
Yeah.
It's wrong, really. It doesn't. In many ways, it doesn't make sense, right? I mean, somebody doing one CFO role doesn't suddenly make them, transformed into the full CFO. Into the full.
It's also the same. We've spoken in the past about sort of that step into sort of a plural non-exec chair role. It's that difficult leap, isn't it?
Yeah, doing it for the first time, absolutely. Although that one at least is a whole new set of skills. So in some ways, I understand boards who are nervous about people who are execs going into being a non-exec. But the CEO role, it's keep learning and keep developing. That's all you can do, really.
What type of person, in your opinion, should absolutely not pursue a role of a CEO, and how do you spot them?
I think that's quite a personal question, right? Because there are different CEOs, and you lead you lead according to your own values, and that there isn't only one way that fits. For me, you absolutely don't want somebody who wants to be a CEO just because they want to be a CEO.
For the title.
Right, for the title, the power,
And have you seen many of those in your career, those type of individuals?
I think we all have, haven't we? I mean, and it's not just limited to CEO. I think it's there are lots of roles within organisations where people are, quite self-important and generally goes hand in hand with being not very self-aware, and lead through their power of their title rather than their skills and their ability to get respect from those that they work for. So in my view, they are really easy to spot. Yeah. But organisations clearly don't always spot them because, you end up with people leading organisations who are, everyone meets them and says,
bows down.
But the problem is then that again, there's back to not one size fits all. Some of those people can be successful. Yeah. Right now, whether you or I would want to work in their organisations is a different question. Yeah. And whether there's quite a lot of collateral damage. Yeah. Different questions, but they can be successful, and it is also difficult because you can't. I don't know. I think to be a CEO, you have to be confident, right? You have to have self-confidence, and one person's self-confidence is another person's arrogance, right? So it is a delicate line. Yeah. But I do think there remain mostly male egomaniacs, right? Who want to be CEO because it's going to feed their ego, and yes, they're easy to spot, and yes, they still get jobs as CEOs.
It's a shame. Speaking bluntly, do you think the pipeline of future CEOs is stronger than people think or weaker? Do you think there's a sort of strong perception that there is a strong pipeline out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anything's fundamentally changed. I think if you go right back to the first thing we took, your first question, I think I benefited from people giving me jobs that I wasn't quite ready for.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that's always stuck in my mind, apologies, but a bit grander than this. Terry Leahy did Desert Island Discs.
Yes.
And I heard it, and you can still listen to it. But whoever the presenter was at that time asked him how he got to where
Yeah.
and he said, I got here because people kept giving me jobs I didn't think I could do.
Okay.
And that really resonated with me, because there were 2 or 3 times in my career where I was given jobs and I thought,
yeah.
and once I asked for it and then was given it and was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
I do worry that our world, particularly in the UK, has become very risk averse. A bit like we talked about earlier in terms of moving different sectors and moving people on. And CEO isn't the time to do that. But there are aspects, as we've talked about, of being a CEO that are new and fresh and daunting. And so it is important that at some stage in your career, you were given jobs that you didn't think you could do. Whether you admitted it to anybody is a different matter. But I would want to see somebody going into a CEO role who was self-aware enough to go, this is going to be there are aspects of this I'm really worried about. There are aspects that are going to wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to worry. So I want your support. I'll need your support. What you don't want is someone who says, I've been waiting for 5 years to be a CEO. I'm ready. I've been ready for 5 years.
Yeah.
In fact, that 5 years has made me even more ready. So when I step into it, there's nothing whatsoever for me to learn. So I have a slight suspicion that we've become so risk averse that we only put people into jobs when they're ready, and we then make them stay far too long in roles. And to be honest with you, without sort of going into too much Keller business. Yeah, that's one of my challenges to Keller, right? We have people stayed with the business for a long time. We've got some really fantastic leadership, but we've also got a lot of really good young talent. Yeah. And that young talent is learning enormous amounts about engineering. I want to see whether we're really pushing them in terms of leadership. And by the time you get to CEO, you should know how to deal with feeling that you don't have all of the answers and that you are worried about it. You should know how to deal with that. If you've always been given jobs that you can do and you've always done them well, and you turn up as a CEO, I would worry about somebody.
I think I certainly share your view on sort of how risk averse we've become as a nation, and I think that little bit of worry, that a bit of anxiety sort of drives you, doesn't it? It gives you sort of that motivation and that passion to succeed.
You don't know what your potential is until you're pushed beyond it, right? There's all sorts of sporting analogies around this, right? But what we're capable of is always more than we think we're capable of. Organisations need to make sure that they put guardrails around that. That maybe are not that apparent to the person.
Of course.
You know, some of those jobs I did in Scottish and Newcastle where I was worried and thought the guardrails were way away from where I could see them. I thought I was in jeopardy and could cause real damage. When I look back, I think actually there were enough people around. They were watching what I was and wasn't doing, and if I'd really sort of gone off in the wrong direction, they would have made sure I didn't. So I think that that's an organisational responsibility. That's how we make sure we get good CEOs of the future.
And that's why we've sort of developed this Ascent programme. It's to really sort of hone in and focus on sort of that leadership gap, that sort of CEO to leader trust gap. And hopefully over the coming years, we'll be able to sort of do something about that. Final question. What's one piece of advice you would give the next generation of CEO that you wish you'd been given all those years back?
I think that, and this is back to your point about luck versus skill, I think that nobody told me how important international experience was going to be. Yeah. And even though I came back and ran a domestic business in Wincanton, the fact that I'd seen the US, Canada, and Mexico in particular, and how they approach logistics problems and how the culture worked, and how the customers differed, was just really eye-opening for me. So it's probably not helpful to sort of give people advice that I didn't get, but I did anyway. But that, no one said it to me, and I say now when I talk to sort of younger graduates, I say a lot in Wincanton as domestic business. If you do get the opportunity at some point in your career to spend a few years away from the UK, take it.
Do you think that's when do you think that changed you as a leader? Do you think that sort of made you the leader you are today, having that international experience, exposure, different cultures, different styles?
I don't know if it changed me. It just broadened me and gave me just a broader perspective on the world. You know, it was at the same time, I'd spent a long time in brewery logistics and distribution, and you end up becoming quite narrow. Right? You end up thinking that is the only world out there, and it's liberating to move into different sectors. Never mind then moving into different geographies and countries. But like I said earlier, I think that I learned how important language is. And how you communicate with your team. I'll give you one very quick anecdote, which may not make the cut. Anyway, I'll give you a quick anecdote. So, first time I went to Mexico, I had a presentation from all of the team there, and I said to the national manager at the end, I can't remember their names, but I said one guy was really great, and then this other guy, that wasn't. And he said to me, and he's an Argentinian, but he was leading our Mexico business. And he said to me, you know what, James? He said, you're 100% wrong.
Right, okay.
Right? One of them is a top performer and the other one isn't, and it's the other way around.
Oh, wow.
And he said, the reason you've come to that conclusion is because you've just judged them on how good their English was.
Okay.
So the one that presented really well is the lower performer, but his English is great. So he's polished, and you thought it was great. The other one doesn't have very good English. In their jobs, they speak Spanish. They don't. They don't. English is irrelevant to them. So you've made a judgment on completely the wrong skill, and that I've never forgotten that, because it both your communication with people, but also their communication with you, doesn't tell the whole story, if you know what I mean. You've got to be able to go. So I just think I just grew as a person as a result of that.
Final question. Is there anything that you think the next generation of CEOs should be preparing for that current CEOs don't have or have to face?
Oh, well, clearly.
I mean obviously we live in a massive...
technology, right? I mean, technology is changing so incredibly rapidly. There are some industries where that's much more relevant than others. It'll touch all of us. But I think that CEOs understanding, in whatever industry they end up in, where AI is going, and what the opportunities there are for them in terms of data, what it means for employment and teams, of course, and how you motivate people in a world where everyone keeps talking about AI taking everybody's jobs away. I think it's not just about how it changes the business and delivers new benefit for shareholders. It's also society is going to have an issue with explaining, well, what's our role in it? And I think that will have a big impact inside the next 10 years. So CEOs being appointed in the next few years are absolutely going to have to tackle that sort of challenge.
It'd be interesting if we see a different route to the CEO role from in the next 10 years.
It could be, could be. I mean, who knows? Like I say, it changes so incredibly rapidly, and not sure we're in control of all of it either.
So sadly, we've come to an end. I think we're only just touching the surface. Any final words? Any final thoughts for the listeners?
I don't think so. I think it's a really good discussion to have. I'm glad that you're running the program.
Yeah.
I'm glad that somebody from Keller is also joining that program because I think that it is difficult. Talked about it earlier. It is difficult to make that leap. You do need people to take a chance on you if it's your first time. The way for that to happen more often is for there to be more of a discussion about it and a discussion from both sides about how did I get there, and what am I looking for in terms of succession for me, and then what do we expect out of people who are waiting for that. So no, I think it's really good.
Thank you.
Initiative.
Thank you, and I'm really grateful that you're part of the Ascent, and I know we've nominated somebody in Keller. So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
James.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Thanks.